Americans who tuned into this week's Republican National Convention were treated to a slickly produced 4-day dispatch from an alternate reality, one in which the fake president has defeated the pandemic, healed America's racial wounds, and ushered in a booming economy, which he didn't. In this carnival propaganda, Donald Trump was presented not just as a fake president, but as a quasi-messianic figure who has single-handedly prevented the nation's slide into anarchy. Every presidential nominating convention is, to a certain extent, an exercise in a hype and whitewashing. But Trump's 2020 convention went further, rewriting the history of his first term with such brazenness that it seemed designed to disorient. The setting of the convention's final night reinforced the surreality. The made-for-TV stage in the White House assault lawn, the cheering unmasked audience of more than 1,000 standing shoulder to shoulder, the speakers blaring Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA was loud enough to drown out protesters at the gate. This election will decide whether we will defend the American way of life or whether we allow a radical movement to completely dismantle it. The fake president declared in his speech formally accepting the Republican nomination. That won't happen, but by one count, the address contained at least 20 lies. Many of the Republican strategists I spoke with this week, or the person that's actually doing it who spoke with those strategists, but with this week flatly acknowledging that their party was presenting a version of recent events that veered toward fan fiction, but given the bitter mood of the country and the dire state of the race, they said the campaign's desperation was understandable. In some ways, the speeches are reminiscent of the speeches one hears in a memorial service where everyone stretches the truth to say nice things. A.J. Delgado, who worked for Trump's 2016 campaign, said, "We're all in the audience muttering, 'Well, that's not true, but I get it. What else can you say?'" The rat-a-tat of distortions and conspiracy theories began with Trump's address to delegates on Monday, when he accused Democrats of trying to rig the election with universal mail-in voting, which he called the greatest scam in the history of politics. It is not. Later, Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana claimed that Joe Biden had embraced the insane mission to defund the police, which he hasn't. Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida warned that Democrats would disarm you, empty the prisons, lock you in your home, and invite MS-13 to live next door. They will not. And Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee said Democrats wanted to keep you locked in your house until you become dependent on the government for everything, which they do not. With the coronavirus, which has so far killed more than 180,000 Americans, it came up during the convention. It was in service of Trumpian revisionism. From the very beginning, Democrats, the media, and the World Health Organization got the coronavirus wrong, the narrator said in the video that aired Monday night, but one leader had took divisive action to save lives. Trump, no, he didn't. 180,000 dead on his hands, that's his fault. This narrative was untethered from reality. Trump's early refusal to take the virus seriously is well documented, and it didn't stop his Democratic owning fans from exchanging high fives on social media. That video was going to take all the way ahead to explode, tweeted the conservative talk show host Eric Erickson. The myth that Trump has already beaten the virus pervaded the convention. As a colleague, Russell Berman, has noted, the pandemic is repeatedly referred to in the past tense. It was awful, Trump economic advisor Larry Kudlow said in his speech on Tuesday. Brian Lanza, a former Trump advisor, defended this warped account as simply calling it a glass-half-full version of the fake president's record. When I challenged him on that, he countered, "What do you view as defeating the coronavirus? Because I know this administration is measuring it by the death count." He says the person pointed out that there's more than 1,000 Americans dying each day from the virus. Every death is a tragedy, Lanza said, but remember where we were in March, where people were estimating 3 to 5 million deaths. 300,000 is a fraction of that. Much of the Republican convention seemed to be reorganized around erasing the national memory of Trump's bigotry. He presided over a naturalization ceremony. He surprised an ex-felon with a presidential pardon. A slate of black speakers was invited to say nice things about the fake president, defended him against accusations of racism, and tout his role in passing the criminal justice reform bill. Of course, in between these feel-good stunts and testimonials were bleak warnings about the Marxist revolutionary forces that were wreaking havoc in American cities and could be coming for you next. The most potent of these segments featured the McCloskeys an affluent Missouri couple who went viral after pointing guns at Black Lives Matter protesters outside their house in June. But make no mistake about this, Patricia McCloskey told viewers no matter where you live, your family will not be safe. In the Democrats' America, protesters, she said, are not satisfied with spreading chaos and violence into our communities. They want to abolish the suburbs altogether. The police brutality, the issue, in the heart of the summer's unrest received only glancing mentions during the convention. Sarah Isgur, a former spokesperson for the Trump Justice Department, told people she didn't believe the convention's goal was to lure shaky Joe Biden supporters into the president's unreality, but I think that's what they were trying to do. Instead, the campaign was targeting people who wanted an excuse to vote for Trump, but felt uneasy about it, hence the dual message broadcast reminding his voters why a Biden presidency would scare them, and also giving Trump sympathetic voters permission to vote for Trump. Last fall, a person created a fake Facebook account because they wanted to immerse themselves in the MAGA information ecosystem. People wanted to witness the onslaught of the pro-Trump propaganda firsthand to see the fake president's sophisticated disinformation campaign at work. In the months since people first wrote about the experiment for the Atlantic, people periodically have been asked by wide-eyed Democrats to recount their journey into the fever swamps. The truth is that anyone who watched this week's convention has a pretty good idea of what it was like. The programming may have been glossier, softer, more savvily pitched into certain demographics, but the goal seemed the same, not to persuade or convert, but to disorient and demoralize. Americans have spent the past 4 years watching the fake Trump presidency unfold, and they are not overwhelmingly impressed by what they've seen. His campaign appears determined to make voters second-guess themselves. As the political theorist Hannah Arendt once wrote, the purpose of propaganda has never been to instill convictions, but to destroy the capacity to form any. So, if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Random Mike, and also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, and thanks for listening.